will not believe this one. Or will you? What happens when one country accuses another of failing to protect its citizens? That's exactly what's happening right now. The Mexican government says 17, you heard me correctly, 17 Mexican nationals have died in connection with U.S. immigration enforcement since President Donald J. Trump returned to office. 14 while in ICE custody and 3 during ICE operations. I'd probably say it probably more we don't even know about. Mexico has announced it will move beyond diplomatic protests and seek criminal investigations in the United States. So tonight, we're asking a very simple question. Should the United States be held legally accountable when foreign nationals die in immigration custody? Or are these tragic incidents being unfairly used to attack immigration enforcement? Please remember to like, follow, share, and comment below. Welcome to Money and Politics Simplified. This is the show where we break down the power, policy, and the government without all the spin they try to put on it. I'm Esco Latimer. Tonight, we're discussing a growing diplomatic dispute between the United States and our longtime friend, Mexico. Mexico says repeated deaths involving Mexican nationals in ICE custody and during immigration enforcement operations demand criminal investigations and civil lawsuits. The Trump administration maintains that detainees receive due process and humane treatment and disputes claims that deaths have increased because of its policies. Let's break it down and then we're going to simplify it, okay? Mexico has announced that it plans to file criminal complaints with U.S. prosecutors over the deaths of Mexican nationals connected to ICE enforcement here in the U.S. According to Mexican officials, 14 Mexican nationals died in ICE custody. 3 more died during ICE enforcement operations. Mexico says previous diplomatic requests for investigations did not produce satisfactory results. So it is now pursuing legal action in the U.S. court system and civil claims involving some private detention center operators. One recent case involved Lorenzo, a Mexican national who was fatally shot by ICE agents during enforcement in Houston, Texas. Federal authorities have said the shooting occurred after he allegedly failed to comply with commands and attempted to use his vehicle against officers. So here we go with that again. So my question is, are these officers trained to hurl their bodies in front of moving vehicles? This doesn't seem practical to me. His family disputes the account and has called for an independent investigation, arguing that the public has not seen video evidence that he did such anything. Mexico says this case illustrates why greater accountability is needed. Mexico is not simply issuing another diplomatic protest. Its government says it intends to request criminal investigations by U.S. prosecutors, pursue civil legal actions involving some detention facilities, continue pressing international human rights organizations to examine the deaths. Mexico argues that every government has a duty to protect its citizens, even when they are living abroad or detained in another country. The Department of Homeland Security rejects the claim that ICE is systematically mistreating detainees. It's not like ICE has a history of overstepping boundaries, right? Not in the U.S. No, that would never happen. Federal officials say detainees receive due process. Medical care is provided. Officers are trained to use only the amount of force necessary. Each death is reviewed according to the agency's procedures. The administration argues that immigration officers often deal with dangerous and unpredictable situations. The immigration officers, yes. ICE, I'm not sure about that. And making these broad conclusions are inappropriate without examining the facts of each individual case. This case raises an important legal issue. When someone dies in government custody, who's responsible? Governments have a legal duty to provide reasonable, safe conditions. Yes? No? What do you think? Appropriate medical care sounds reasonable, and constitutional protection that people normally will have in their custody. If negligence or unlawful conduct contributed to a death, courts may determine that government agencies or even private contractors operating detention facilities can be held legally responsible. That's what civil people do. On the other hand, not every death in custody automatically means misconduct occurred. Each case depends on its facts, medical evidence, and legal standards. at all times. Supporters of stronger immigration enforcement argue ICE officers have a difficult job. Many detainees have medical conditions that existed before entering custody or even the country. Some enforcement operations involve dangerous suspects and rapidly evolving situations. Can't argue with that. Critics respond that none of these realities eliminate the government's obligation to protect people once they are detained. They argue transparency, independent investigation, and accountability strengthen, not weaken, the rule of law. This debate isn't only about immigration, it's about how governments exercise power. Mexico's criminal complaints do not automatically mean charges will be filed. U.S. prosecutors will independently decide whether any criminal investigation or any prosecution is warranted. Civil lawsuits may also proceed separately. Regardless of the outcome, the dispute has increased diplomatic tensions between the United States and Mexico. Put them on the list of everyone else who has the issue with us right now. And has placed renewed attention on detention center conditions, medical care, and the use of force in immigration enforcement. So as always, let's simplify all this information, okay? Mexico is accusing the United States of failing to adequately protect Mexican nationals who died in ICE custody or during immigration enforcement operations. The U.S. government disputes claims that its policy caused deaths and maintains that detainees receive appropriate treatment. The courts, not headlines, will ultimately determine whether any laws were violated. But one thing is certain: whenever someone dies in government custody, conditions about transparency, accountability are inevitable. Personally, I believe immigration laws should be enforced. It's a no-brainer. Every nation has the right to secure its borders and enforce its immigration system. But I also believe that once a person is in government custody, the government assumes a profound responsibility, whether someone is a U.S. citizen, a lawful permanent resident, or a undocumented immigrant. They should be treated humanely. Don't you think so? And in accordance with the law. That is what separates us from animals and makes us one of the greatest countries in the world. If there is credible evidence of negligence, excessive force, or inadequate medical care, those allegations should be investigated thoroughly and independently. At the same time, we shouldn't assume wrongdoing simply because a death occurred. It is sad, and I can empathize with the loss of a loved one. Every case deserves a careful examination of evidence, not conclusions based on politics. The rule of law requires both accountability and fairness. What do you think about the next statement? Should foreign governments have the right to pursue legal action in U.S. courts when their citizens die in American immigration custody, especially when they came here illegally? Do you believe current oversight of ICE detention facilities is sufficient, or should Congress require stronger, independent investigations whenever someone died while in federal custody by a third party that is independent of any government interference? Let me know in the comments below. I'm Miss Golabner. I know this is a touchy subject, but please remember to like, follow, share, and comment respectively. This is Money in Politics Simplified. Stay informed, stay engaged, because when you understand the money, well, my friends, you understand politics. Have a good night.
Talking money, talking power. Follow the paper and you find a throne. Deals in the back while the cameras roll.